All right, we're back for another episode of Them's Fighting Words podcast. It's been a long time. Glad to see you guys over here for the Wing Chun channel, all things martial arts and fitness. And I appreciate you guys joining and enjoying the content been putting up lately. I started this podcast, about a year ago, where I wanted to have more people on really discussing the passions of what they do with their martial arts and how it affects everything from their journey to their life and just all things passionate for martial arts. If you haven't checked out some of the other episodes I've had on, I mean, clearly a bias, but having Light Burley back on after over a decade of doing content together was awesome. Dan the Wolfman. I mean, there's a great list of people I've had to interview. Mike Van Beek, Kevin Lee. If you guys have never heard the podcast before, I have a ton of people that we've been having on discussing their passion, martial arts, how it ties in, and actually how it affects our lives. I got Danielle Pashko today joining me. We're gonna have a conversation, and hopefully you guys enjoy. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit that like button, share, comment below what your thoughts are, who you'd like to see me have on for a discussion, and we'll go from there. Danielle, thank you for putting up with the last 5 minutes or so of pre-production work, and appreciate you having on today. Thanks for your time.
All good. I understand, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I appreciate this. You've accommodated quite a bit behind the scenes, changing time and then putting up with that. The first thing I ask everybody, and I told you I was going to ask this, is who are you? Give us a 360-degree view, a 30,000-foot view of who Danielle Pashko is, because how I found you was I saw some of your content. I think we were kind of aligned with some other stuff. And then I see a picture of you on a beach from a back shot, and I went, you've got to be kidding me. That's a Selim Tao stance. What is going on here? You're doing the first form. And you're like, yes, I am. So I immediately find out that you are a Wing Chun practitioner. And I'm like, all right, I got to hear your story. So it's been a while, and now we're doing a podcast. Tell us who you are. I want to hear your story.
So I've been in the health and wellness world for the past 25 years or so, mostly functional nutrition, working in different functional medicine practices. And I was good and healthy and loving what I was doing. And then I ended up dealing with a chronic health challenge, and I was very sick. And I worked in the industry, and I was not able to help myself. And I had access to the best doctors in New York City and around the world. And surprisingly, the thing that actually aided my recovery was martial arts. And it was very surprising to me. And I realized that the essence of it was helping me to control my nervous system. And I was a yoga instructor also for many years, and it didn't have the same effect. But working with your body's chi and your life force and being able to do these different disciplines within the martial arts, doing the internal and the external, I just made major strides from being almost like completely chronically fatigued to being able to have so much energy. And yes, I'm doing Wing Chun as one of the practices that I do. And now when I work with people, I don't only focus on helping them nutritionally, but really getting them in touch with their bodies, getting grounded. And I try to teach them about the different martial arts practices and how that actually can enhance their life and also help with whatever it is that they're dealing with if they have a physical challenge. They think they can't do it because they have a physical challenge, and it's actually the opposite. It could help their healing.
I'm very curious about that because this is 2025 and we're in America, and everything here has got to be bigger, stronger, faster. And traditional martial arts are a joke, and they have no place if it's not practical MMA and all this. I'm curious, going from that into martial arts, that's not too far of a leap, because there seems to be, I'm not a yoga practitioner at all. I've done it a couple times, but there has to be a very big mind-body connection. So it's for you to go from that to martial arts, okay, that sounds like a significantly easily path to grasp. Why Wing Chun? How did you get on that? What made the appeal of that? Why? Because it's been my experience with most females. They're like, I want something empowering, like boxing or kickboxing or this, that. Yeah. You chose an extremely introspective and internal martial arts. Kung Fu it's not very extenuous when it comes down to the initial stages. Why was that appealing for you?
So when I was younger, I I have an estranged father now since a young age, but when I was very little, like my memories of him are just watching kung fu movies, and he was a funny guy, and I saw him like, when the movies are all dubbed and he would mouth them and kind of be, with humor, and it just reminded me of my father. And I always growing up thinking martial arts is really cool. And I never actually pursued it because I did the yoga. But then when I became ill and I found the yoga was not helping me, I got very into my visualization and meditation and trying to heal myself in my mind, because at that point I was not strong enough to do a practice like Kung Fu. But every meditation that I had, I started visualizing myself, remembering these movies as a child and watching myself doing these movements. And that, to me, if you could do a practice like Wing Chun or one of these martial arts, to me, that was already being healed. It didn't matter the how, but it was already the solution. But I knew I couldn't do that. So how I ended up starting is I found a teacher, and he was a teacher, used to teach Kung Fu, and then he moved into the softer arts, which are Tai Chi, which is still Kung Fu, but it's much softer. It's internal, and also Qigong. And I started off with him, and he was like my Mr. Miyagi. And we spent a lot of time together. And he helped me to really get grounded, build up my chi. He helped me with my fatigue. I really regained strength. And I started sharing with him how I grew up loving Kung Fu, but I didn't think that I was able to do that. And he said that if I wanted to move on, that he saw the change in me, he saw my strength, and that Wing Chun was a very good discipline to practice. And when I learned the history of Wing Chun and how it came from a nun, Wu Mei, who ended up teaching Wing Chun, who's a woman, and I thought it was so freaking cool that I thought, let me at least try it and see how it goes. And I started practicing. I found a studio in New York, and I took to it, and I love it. And I think it is just so good for women to practice. And I'm shocked that not that many women do it because of its roots. So yeah, I'm definitely a big fan, and I continue to practice, and I just really want to keep on growing and developing because I think it's really just an amazing art.
Yeah, so many people don't like to practice because it requires a lot of internal self study. You're standing in a position with your knees bent and your toes pigeon-toed in, and you're doing a form as slow as possible. It's the anti-American solution for bigger, stronger, faster. It's slower.
But that's why I like it. That's why I like it.
Talk about that
Because
for a second. Go ahead, talk about that. I want to
in
hear.
terms of healing, and you have to look, I'm very type A, and I like to do things fast. And even the yoga I did was called Ashtanga. It was very fast. It was very physical. It was like gymnastics. But because the condition my body was in before, I had to slow down and building up your life force. I mean, doing things like, doing the Sunam Dao, it's a meditation, and it's so good for getting rooted. And people want it, like you said, they want to go faster, they want to do all this, but our nervous systems have gone crazy, and that's why I believe there's so much. People are having chronic issues, whether they're dealing with cardiovascular issues or just stressed out or they can't cope with life. And this is a practice that you gain strength with, but at the same time, you're still able to work on building up your health and your chi, and it is meditative. I mean, I go to the beach at sunset a lot of nights because I'm in Miami for the winter. I'm also in New York City, but I go back and forth. And I think that's one of the pictures you saw, doing the Sunam Dao at the beach. And I just look at the ocean, and I find it so peaceful. And I think it's such a beautiful practice.
Talk about your journey to begin with, because now you went from Tai Chi into Wing Chun, so you already had a mindset that was based for stillness. Tai Chi, I don't care who says what, I talk about this all the time. I met a man, so it'd be 15 years ago. Yeah, it was 2014, so 10 years ago. We were doing some video work, and he very, very lighter than me. I think I was 175, he's 150, tall string bean, and there's me, and small and short, low center of gravity, and I have a strong wrestling background. and I could not move him. I'm like, and he was a Tai Chi master at his base.
Yeah.
His root was amazing. And I understood that for that to happen, you really have to take slow, cognitive, just training and become one with your skill set, especially in these internal arts of drawing up energy from the earth and locking down into it. So was it really that hard to go into Wing Chun where you see these fast, explosive, rapid fire, 12 Fanda continuation of strike hand movements, and you're like, oh, but I got to start here first? Were you okay with going, all right, I will spend, 6 weeks just Tan Sao, Wu Sao, Tan Sao. Were you okay with that? Is that what you wanted?
Yes. Actually, having the background in Tai Chi, which I still practice daily, it's still a huge part of my life, the Tai Chi and Qigong. I'll never stop doing that. But I think it helps to be softer in your practice. And the way my Sifu down in Florida that I work with, that is more Tai Chi and Qigong, but had a Wing Chun background, he talks about the softness, and it's not with so much effort, but he always says flow like water. I think I think Bruce Lee said that, right? So he didn't make that up.
He stole that from Wing Chun. Go ahead.
He stole that, but it's true. And I think that it's something that has helped because, in our American way, like you said, we want stronger, faster, harder. We want to go in there. And sometimes I think it can get a little bit sloppy if you're just, going in just for the sake of fighting, and maybe it'll hurt somebody, and maybe that's what you want to do. But I have more interest in learning the skill and the mechanics properly. And if that takes time, I have the patience for it. And conversely, when I'm doing Tai Chi, now he'll call out movements, like he'll be like the tansao, like you're doing a snake, and all these different things, or you're doing a lopsao, or you're doing all these different things that are in Tai Chi, and he can call them out with Wing Chun names, and I know exactly what he's talking about. So the two really flow nicely together. And he had me watch this movie called Iron and Silk. I'm not sure if you ever saw it. But it was just about this school teacher, I think from New York City, wanted to go to China to learn Kung Fu. And he learned some Kung Fu in the States, but he went there and he was very like all over the place with his Kung Fu. And people were a lot more refined that were practicing there. And they kind of laughed him out of the class. And in his school, where he was a school teacher, he connected with this woman, and she practiced Tai Chi, and she started teaching him. And on the side, he would start working with her. And finally, this Kung Fu teacher accepted him because his practice softened and refined as a result of becoming rooted. And it was interesting to watch that. And I think it's based on a true story.
Yeah, it's probably based off of Hawkins Chung, which was one of Bruce Lee's classmates. Hawkins Chung, who was he was Gary Lamb's teacher, I believe. Gosh, it's been so long since I've looked into this. He was a great fighter. The man was ruthless. Jin Young was underneath Hawkins for a long time, and it was infamously known that I think Ip Man suggested to Hawkins, "You're so high strung," or maybe it was Wang Sheng Wang who just "You're so high strung, you need to go do Tai Chi to balance yourself out." So he did. So yeah, right. You're talking about that. That was a true story for a very famous, well-known Wing Chun fighter, Hawkins Chung, he was a ruthless Wing Chun killer, but he also did Tai Chi to balance himself out. Talk about Qigong. I know nothing about that. I have zero context with it, zero explorer with it. I watched. That's the only thing I've ever seen was my second Sifu, who had a passion for it, and some of the energetics he did were kind of beyond definable through human eyes. And I was like, whoa. So talk about your experience there with a little bit, because I'm very curious.
So Qigong works on the different organs that are associated with the elements. If you learn this through traditional Chinese medicine, and how each organ is associated with an emotion. And so, for example, if you're doing one movement and let's say you're working on the kidneys, you're working on a movement that you're you're using your lower back as you move, and you're working on your kidney chi. And a lot of times the movements will come with sound and breath. So each movement corresponds to an organ in the body. And let's say someone's really angry, right? And they want to work on their liver. I mean, there's actually movements. I love 5 element Qigong because it's like if you're actually doing like a punching, but you're using resistance, and you're using resistance as you're punching out, and you're moving the energy through your body so you can actually help detoxify your liver. So all the organs in your body, it helps the circulation, it helps the detoxification, it helps you sleep better, and just really helps you with groundedness. So for people who are fatigued and they need more energy, or they feel like they're dominant in one emotion, maybe it's fear, or maybe it's anger, or they're just, they're exhausted. There's so many ways that it helps. And there's actually medical Qigong that people use for healing. But I think that the association in people's minds is, oh, Qigong and Tai Chi is for like the 65 and older crowd. And I kind of thought that way too. But then when my body turned into someone who was like 65 and older, I had to start off with those practices. But now I realize that it's such an intelligent practice, and I'll never stop doing it.
I would have never believed it, right? And then you have so much evidence for everything you say being true. I mean, just the difference between Eastern and Western medicine, and how we now know that stress, if you're angry or you're fight or flight, or you're sad, that stress will affect your cortisol levels, which will affect your
Exactly.
weight gain and whatnot. Frequency and vibration. I mean, for the love of God, all it takes is to go look at the study done by the doctor who had 2 glasses or jars of water. I can't remember his name. And he spoke to one in negative words and one to positive words. And, you saw a molecular change to it, which I, for years, thought that when people talk to their plants, oh, look at my plant is growing, it's flourishing. I would go, well, yeah, because you're expelling carbohydrates, carbon dioxide on them, and they thrive off of that. But now it's like, no, there's vibration and frequency that you're putting into this. When I was probably in my second year of Wing Chun, and I'm doing the first section of the first form, my teacher had told me forever, he goes, when you do it quiet in your home, in a more of a meditative state, you can feel the energy drop from the earth and store in your dantian. And I went, you're full of shit, dude. Just teach me how to punch. Just teach me the bong lop chop. That's all I want to know. And then one day I did it, and I was like, it was so euphoric and was so powerful. And literally you learn to do it on command with breath work and syncing up your internal with the external. So everything you say, I believe it's completely legitimate. Talk about noticeable, like, was there any aha moments where you're doing this and then you're like, holy crap, these are some health markers that are improving that I didn't notice? Like, was there any milestones?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was at a point that I was so sick. I was bit by a tick. So I had chronic Lyme disease. So if you're from the Northeast or places that are very woodsy with deer, a tick can basically ruin your life. And I was just in bad shape. And then after that, I got COVID, a very mild case, but I was almost bedbound. I had blurred vision. I felt like I had a concussion. My balance was off. I had the worst chronic fatigue. I mean, I've never been a depressed person, and I was just like, I was so physically fit my whole life, and I couldn't do anything. And I went dark. And I was still a practitioner in a clinic helping people with their nutrition because I, had to keep working. And I felt sort of like this fraud. Like, here I am helping people with their health, and at the same time, like, I'm in such a terrible physical state. And as much as food or medicine or any of those things can work, I also found that there's a missing piece if you don't take in the spiritual, the emotional, and also the energetic. And that's what was missing for me. So when I was doing these things and I was not feeling sick anymore, that was like, yeah, that's huge. Like, I had fatigue and now I don't. Like, I was able to go to, start going to my Wing Chun studio and run up the 6 flights of stairs to get there, then start my practice. and spar with someone and then stay late and then walk home another 2 miles. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm a lot better. It was just clear. And this was not through all these specialists and medications. And I even had a nurse come to my house before this happened. And she would give me an IV with human plasma for 5 hours at a time. I went through hell and nothing worked like this worked. So that's why now when I work with people, even if they have the best diet and they're disciplined or they're taking a million supplements, they're listening to their naturopath, I'm like, what are you doing for your body and your nervous system? Because if that's not handled, it's only a piece of the puzzle what you're doing. You need to do it all.
I want to plug for a second. I want to talk about your website. I want to bring this up several times to give a call to action people. Talk about this. This is Soul Hacker, HAKKER.com.
It's a little bit of a play on words of biohacking. So a lot of people are familiar. Are you familiar with biohacking?
Yeah, a little bit. I've neurofeedback I've done. Some other I'm gonna completely misrepresent this. I'm gonna shut the hell up and let you explain.
Okay. So there's all these people out there that call themselves biohackers, and it's where they hack their biology. Meaning hacks like they're doing an infrared sauna, they like to do a cold plunge, they take a handful of supplements, they like there's these guys out there that are very popular and they think they can live to 120. They're convinced. But they're not taking into consideration the soul. It's like they're doing all these external things, but there's other things at work that have to do with our lifespan and our health span. So I don't look at myself like a biohacker, even though I've done a lot of those modalities. I think you sometimes have to look inward, and that's what Soul Hacker is for me. So it incorporates doing these internal martial forms in addition to other information that is shared on the website. But I think it's good for people to learn. So these are just instructional videos of me and my Sifu. Because I'm not a teacher, but I'm a dedicated student and I practice with him all the time. But he's been doing it for a long time. So these videos are with us together, and I'm showing the Daily Soul series, which is the exact series of videos and practices that helped me get my strength back and be able to do practices like Wing Chun.
Let's talk about the essential for this. Yeah, you're going to get most people when they go to YouTube and they look up martial arts content, it's for entertainment, or it's like, some people want to do MMA and they want to fight and this and that. I think that a majority of people out there need this, and I'll let you answer this. We are in a world now that is all online. Our physicality is zilch. We don't do anything. We're unhealthy, mentally unhealthy. It's what stimulus goes through your mind or brain, through your eyes every 2 seconds with a constant 24-hour news cycle. The relationship between that and stress and health, and then poor diet. How important is Wing Chun, Tai Chi, Qigong, whatever, all of your passion? How important is that for you to advocate to people who are like, I'm not healthy in a general sense? How important is what you do for them?
I think it's very important, but I also think people have to do what they resonate with. So I remember when I taught yoga, and some people were like, I'm never going to do yoga. That's just not for me. So some people are not going to connect with it. But I think people just don't understand the benefits of these martial arts and how helpful they are. And I think that it is really quality of life changing, and it will help them with their stress and so many other things. But it's just not being discussed. These communities are small. It's like if you look at like a Wing Chun community or any kind of other martial arts, everybody kind of knows each other. It's sort of close knit. It's hard to get in, and you feel it's intimidating for an outsider. They're like, where do I fit in this? So I think that if people feel like they are open to be able to go in and learn these types of modalities and practices, then I think they're going to get a lot out of it. I think it's just like lack of education of knowing how beneficial it is. Before, it's funny because I think about Wing Chun and how great it is for women in particular. And it's just nobody knows a story of it. Like when I taught yoga, I taught a form called Ashtanga. And Ashtanga is a very physical form. Like I told you, it's like gymnastics, but it was actually developed for like 12-year-old boys to calm their restless minds in India, to help them to do all the physical stuff first and then get into the meditative. But what ended up happening is you had these people like Madonna, Gwyneth Paltrow, they came to the States and they popularized yoga in the West. And who does it now? A bunch of women with their Lululemon bags and their cute clothes. And it's not 12-year-old boys from India. And the same thing, I think, with martial arts. Like it is such a good form. Wing Chun for women. I think so many women should be doing it, but they don't know the history. So they need, it's like they need someone to come in and make it more accessible, because not only is it good for your health and your nervous system, but you're former law enforcement and you talk about this kind of stuff all the time. Our world is super unsafe, and I think people should be able to defend themselves, especially women. I mean, that for me, being in New York City half the year, it's like I'm not saying that I can from my practice that I'm going to be able to put up with someone with a knife in my throat, but at least I feel like I can get away, and if I have to fight a little bit, I can. And I think that that's very empowering and very important.
I think it changes you as a person too, where the more that you know and your confident ability, you project that and you're not a target. Like I think people would look, if you have you versus somebody else who has never done anything, you're again, frequency and energy. You're just going to give off that vibe. No, something's going on. That's not my target today. I came from a wrestling background, and I've been doing Wing Chun since 1996, and I never felt the need to do anything else. It's like that art just is a full, complete system. There's no need but in America, that's always been my biggest complaint. There's not a lot of people out there like you who are forced to start at the internal. And I mean, I don't wish that on anybody, but it's like you discover the beauty of these arts because your body could not handle what your mind was absorbing. So it's like, shit, you went to college first and then all of a sudden grade school was nothing. The rest of us
I would have never, and at my age, I mean, I don't know if you know how old I am, but
no.
I started at 45, right? So I'm older than I'm 40, I'm 46 and a half right now. But yeah, so I started at 45, and coming from, having been unhealthy, like dealing with all this stuff to first start getting into this kind of practice. And yeah, I had to go through what I went through to actually move into this path. And so it's never too late. And I think, people just really need to understand the benefits. And I just wish there was more, maybe there will be better PR for it, but it's really important for people to be able to take care of themselves. And not only people not coming, feeling like your energy, but also I feel like practicing the way you've always been like this, I'm sure because of your profession, but even being able to read people around you, like, you do so much chi sensing and feeling people and knowing when they're going to come at you, like you feel that. So when you're in a space, I've never had such attention where I could feel what's around me, what's negative, who's trouble. Like it's totally different. Energetically, I just really have tuned into that.
Yeah, the concepts of Wing Chun were a game changer for me. And I like one of the biggest, we used to have a whole big list of them, like relaxation and sensitivity. And it wasn't just for physicality. It was, when you're tense, you start with the analogy of, your physicality. And the more tense you are with your arms, if someone else is making contact with you, you can't feel when they're going to kick you. But if you actually relax and you turn your body off and somebody's making contact with your arms, you could close your eyes. Oh my God, I could just feel when you picked your foot up because you're getting more information. And that was cool to me until I saw how it translated into real life, where it was like I would go to a domestic and normally I would have tunnel vision on the screaming woman who's in the kitchen all pissed off at her boyfriend who's just a deadbeat playing video games, and I got tunnel vision on her. Oh, and if I had been relaxed, I would have seen the barking dog that was right next to me ready to tear my face off. And then over time, I'm like, I'll implement some more relaxation. You get to absorb more. And then that progressed into later on in life where you got a problem with one of your businesses. Being tense is not going to solve it. Relaxation, you're going to solve and find the problem. So for me, like Wing Chun was a life answer, and it was, there's nothing new under the sun. It just was, this was another form of practice of some great life principles that help you advance in any type of fight, where if it's relationship, if it's work, if it's business, if it's finance, if it's physical. So Wing Chun was a fantastic answer for me. You've got such a great internal grasp on this. I have to know, was there a time when the training took off and all of a sudden you're doing skills you didn't think you could do before, and maybe you're doing chi sao or drills and this and that, and you go, holy shit, this, and you're like, I can really F somebody up. Did you ever have those moments where you're like, I didn't know my answer this fast?
Yes. And also just feeling that physical power and being able to do things. And especially where I was, this was my meditation. This was what I was visualizing, and seeing myself strong like that. Like that's where the direction I feel like I'm going. And I get so excited from it, because it's awesome. And it's just really uplifting, and it just makes you feel so freaking empowered. So yes, I definitely
what do you do when your daily life, when you learn structure from both Wing Chun and from Tai Chi, did your yoga change? Did driving the car change? For me, it was really weird, where I started noticing how even opening a door to walk in the home, I was like, oh my goodness, it's economy of motion. I'm not wasting any energy. Things like, all of a sudden, I'd been lifting weights since I was 15 years old, but all of a sudden my compound movements, bench, squat, deadlifts go up because I understand structure now. And it's like, holy crap, did your life change when the external of Wing Chun structure and Tai Chi formed, that was kind of became integrated in who you are?
Well, it's funny you mentioned driving the car. So when I came down to Florida from Manhattan, I've lived there most of my life, so I didn't know how to drive. And I've always had a fear. And after doing these practices, I actually got behind the wheel, and I feel comfortable driving now. And also just feeling people around me and being softer on my feet and not like hitting the brake so hard. And so that's one part of it that I definitely noticed. And just in terms of like we talked about, noticing our surroundings, and just more than ever, I just feel like I'm very aware of situational awareness of what's going on. So I think that was a big shift for me. Not that I wasn't before. I always had to have some street smarts growing up in New York, but especially now, I just feel that. And even traveling, when I was overseas, and I remember it was just like some random place I was over in Europe, and I just felt this like sketchiness going on, and you start to read things differently. So I think it definitely helped me with that.
I tell people I had an experience over the summer. And it just blows me away how often Wing Chun has just shaped and changed my life. I bought a motorcycle, a second one, and it was considerably bigger than my first one. And I was having a problem riding on this thing. It's a very large bike, and the stock seat had me in a position where I was kind of too close to the gas tank, even as a shorter man. And I remember I met Sam Kwok many, many years ago, and all he did was adjust my chi sao in a position where he had me actually move closer in because I'm a shorter man, but then again, sink back down, tuck my chin under, and a fraction of an inch opened up my entire peripheral view, and my whole game changed. So I bought a different seat from a different company that actually sat me back, locked me down, and the world opened up. And my view of riding this motorcycle completely changed. And I was like, why can I see things so much? And I remembered, holy shit, Sam changed me a half inch. I sat back literally an inch more on this. So it blows me away that the answers to so many of our body mechanics, which is so essential as human beings to live, it lives in martial arts. So I kind of want to go back to traditional martial arts. Was your view before? I know you grew up with Kung Fu movies, but did you ever kind of like, well, both
I didn't understand any of it.
So what is your view on traditional martial arts? Eastern, we do a Southern Chinese martial art. How are your views? Like, do they shape you business, work, relationships? Do you operate in your life differently since being somebody who does now traditional martial arts?
I think I'm a lot more calm in my reactions, like meaning that I'm just more, I feel like a little more precise. I feel a lot more rooted. And it's different than when I was just practicing yoga. It's like clarity, if that makes any sense. I just feel much more clear and the way I relate to things. And that rootedness was something that I was definitely missing. So for me to view people through that lens of just being a lot more grounded and present, I think that the presence part was just really huge through doing these practices.
Uh, at talking to other people about it, what kind of resistance do you get? Oh, you do Wing Chun. How is your experience in the Wing Chun family and the politics of martial arts? Because if you're going to be advocating for this and you're going to be supporting it, have you found the culture and the community to be welcoming, or do you see that we are our own worst enemies sometimes? Or
It's funny. So my experience in Manhattan has been awesome. I've met several people from the school that I'm practicing with, to even other practitioners who invited me to practice with them in Chinatown, and they were really cool, and they've been very welcoming and helpful. And I find that it's definitely better to practice with people who are a lot more advanced than you because you learn so much and they give you these corrections. And I think it's been great. I came to Miami and I tried out, I went to some studio here and tried Wing Chun. And it was just a ridiculous amount of ego and just like not welcoming. And it was just, I didn't connect with it at all. So I end up doing a lot of my practice. I go back and forth a lot to New York, and I just want to continue there. I found a good community there.
I think you told me you were under the Lung Ting lineage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I've said I did content, and I think that their lineage has, especially Keith Kernspet, just passed away. I think that lineage has produced more ruthless fighters than really any other one. Wang Sheng Liang, if you have a mix between the two, for those who are versed in this, you have the Wang Sheng Liang lineage, who have some tremendous people who understand true mobility and explosive background from Chi Sao. And then you've got the Lung Ting lineage, who really utilizes Lut Sao and that free sparring, which is fucking brutal that they do. And you can't deny guys like Eamon Bostepe and Mayday Norbert, and I mean the list goes on from them. Victor Gutierrez. I've done a lot of content on them. Have you ever? I'm one who does kind of lineage argue and whatnot, and do you stay out of that, or do you go onto YouTube and look at other people's stuff, and do you have a little bit of arrogance that you're in one of the better lineages, or how is it? Has it fed your ego? Has it kind of inflated you a little bit?
Actually, no, I don't think so. I don't think I'm at a place where I feel like my ego should be inflated. I mean, I'm still learning, and I think I'm progressing well, and I'm enjoying the process. But like I work with great people, so I no, I don't feel that way. I know there's a lot of that. I know that I experienced that down in Miami, and I don't get it. I mean, I just feel like for me. I'm doing it because it's for personal development, and I don't really give a shit about like, like where people come from. As long as they're like, they're spreading a good message, and they're using their kung fu in the right way. It's like I don't really care where it's from, and I don't really have a judgment about it. So
The reason I asked that is for personal progression, because for a long time I did have the humility, and I actually had to do a podcast about this the other day, where all of my other businesses changed because of one Wing Chun video that I did, where it didn't matter what the path it was. If I was doing law enforcement content or sales content or whatever it was, I always gave the due respect to people who were, air quotes, better than me. One day, I'm doing a Wing Chun video, and I started my YouTube channel, and I'm just like everybody else, set the tripod up, and here's what happens if somebody stabs a knife and this and that. And, thanks for watching the video. I had about 4 cups of espresso before class that day. I was so wired, and I just went off, and I was me, and I was unfiltered. And the next thing our YouTube channel blew up, and because I became unfiltered. And the problem was that the unfiltered guy you saw on YouTube was not the same guy who was teaching classes. So I would have guys come in and think that my YouTube persona is who I am, in reality, and they'd want to challenge. I go, guys, I appreciate that. It's not what we do here. And I talk about this story all the time. I actually spoke with my friend Justin Ock, Seafood Justin Ock of Lakeland, Florida, and he had flat out said, he goes, "You are missing out on students." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, that humility is it hinders you in a way, especially as men. No one wants to learn from someone that they think they're better than. And he said, some of my best students are the ones who walked in and left with cracked ribs, split lip and a broken nose, and they became my top students. But it wasn't just about being a teacher. It was about, in order to get to that level, you have to constantly progress more as a student yourself. So for me, that's the reason I asked was, all that internal is phenomenal. But at the end of the day, we are in a martial art that we say is a killing and maiming martial art. It is ruthless. It is brutal. Whenever somebody asks what Wing Chun is really like, I steer them away from the Donnie Yen movies, and I tell them, go watch The Raid, Redemption. And I say that's about as close as the mentality as Wing Chun as you can get on cinema, where you're hitting somebody, then bashing their head through a wall and dragging it down the slats. To get to that point, you kind of have to tap into the ego and the external, and the dragon. And for those who remember the Jeff Speakman movie where he had the dragon ring, you turn it upside down, it was the tiger, and when to go the wisdom of a dragon, but then the ferocity of a tiger. Do you think that you will embrace that side of you? Because it was extremely uncomfortable for me. I lost a lot of students during that time. My school was not advancing, and it wasn't until I went in almost like, hey, I'm the rooster in this bitch, is what it is. It wasn't until that where people kind of fell in line and trained harder and were like, oh, okay, we're here for class today. So for me, it was essential to accept and tap into that aggressive side that Wing Chun does deliver external and balance it. Do you think that that's something that you'll willingly embrace, or you'll go, I don't want any part of that?
No. I definitely have that in me. And it's like, especially if you're sparring or working with someone, you can't always be so soft. And in a street fight, thank God I haven't had a situation where I've had to be in a situation. But yeah, absolutely. I do have it in me. And that's something that, I think one of the dominant emotions that I have is I have a lot of like pent up anger, and it's a great place to release it. So I'm not like always all soft and everything is zen and like we should just be in that grounded moment. It's great to have that, but I think that's like the yin yang. You need to have both, and that's healthy. And I would say most of the time I am softer in nature, but absolutely like that's needed. And so I don't have trouble embracing that. I think it's really important, and to be strong. And I think all of us should tap into that part of ourselves.
Yeah, you're very fortunate to be a part of that lineage, because it's not just the whole Chi Sao soft game that so much watered down Wing Chun has taught and has ruined the art. You are part of a school, of a lineage that by nature embraces the ferocity of Wing Chun.
That's why it's predominantly male. I hardly ever, there's one female teacher. But otherwise, I really don't see many females in class. And because of that, because women in our nature were a lot softer, but actually not. I mean, women can be pretty tough. So it's just that they need to open their mind to doing something like this, and really, I think it'd be a great outlet for them, a really great outlet.
Do you see any of that in Tai Chi as well? Because everyone mistakenly thinks it's just an internal art. There's as much fighting in translation.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
It's a very martial form. I mean, like the things that you do, you could see the Kung Fu in Tai Chi when you really get into it. And a lot of times when I'm working with my teacher, if I'm not like, if I'm moving in a certain way, and he would explain in the beginning, he would grab me and then maybe like put me in some kind of lock and make me get out of it. And then you would actually see the kung fu in the movement. It is self-defense, but it's just that people associate it with this like geriatric practice, and it's really not at all. So yeah, I do get out a lot of stress through doing that, and it's not just like soft, soft, soft.
Let's talk. I want to talk about misconceptions and redirecting on that. I love, like in the last segment, always kind of like problem solving to a degree. Give me some misconceptions that you had. It could be about Wing Chun, could be about Tai Chi that you had in the beginning that now you see are like, whoa, I was wrong about that. Some things you were wrong about that, and then where are you going to go with your Wing Chun journey, with your Tai Chi journey? I want to hear about that. So what are some things in the beginning you were like, oh, this is, and then later on you go, oh my God, was I wrong? And then what is your passion? Where are you going with all this?
So, I mean, I told you a little bit about the Tai Chi and Qigong. I assume that was for an elderly population, but now I'm really learning that it is so strength building. And my teacher, he is like in his 60s, and like he is strong. If he pushes me, like, you'll go flying. So I realize that the power in that, and continuing to do that, I hope at some point that I end up I end up teaching, and I actually use that a lot in my practice to help people with their health and their nervous system. So I think that's the path that I'll end up going with the Tai Chi and Qigong. And as regards to the Wing Chun, I really just want to keep practicing and developing more, because I really want to be able to like beat the shit out of someone who messes with me. I mean, honestly, like that's the
I
truth.
love that you can admit that. Why? That's not an ego. That's an ability, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, it's such a messed up world, and like I'm not one to start a fight, and I'm very fair and reasonable. But if, I was ever in a situation where someone really tried to hurt me, or even like, you know, um, what just happened on the subway,
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Penny, that kind of stuff, like, and be able to just be in a situation where I feel like I'm empowered, and that's where I want to go with it. So do I ever think I'll be a Wing Chun instructor? Probably not. But will I use it in my daily life and my practice, and incorporate it into things that I do all the time, and share it? Absolutely. I just want to keep getting better and keep developing myself.
Light bulb moments. What light bulb moment have you had? It could have been teaching somebody something, correcting a behavior, I don't know, opening a refrigerator door. What intermediate moments did you have that you went, oh my God, that hit you in Wing Chun?
So I think like just even doing chi sao, like thinking about how like my mind's all over the place, and like just the proprioception, and just like really like being present, like, it just, you kind of, you have to really be in the moment. And like for me, I'm like I'm not clear, and I think for me it was really just getting me to, like, it's like tapping your head and rubbing your belly at the same time. Like I had to get that, and I didn't realize, something like that would be so challenging, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, well, the chi sao is such a humbling activity.
It seems so easy, and then you're like, wait.
Oh my God, you have sensitivity, reflex, technique.
Yeah.
There's so many things going on. Yeah, I love like I tell people I almost quit Wing Chun like 3 times, and I remember the last time I almost quit it. I was so frustrated where, it was just a regular class, and you're doing the beginning warm ups, and you're doing your tan strike, and I could not turn to my left with a left tan and a right punch. I couldn't do it. And I'm
But
like,
your brain has to like match your body. Like you could physically do it, but it's like it has to like click in your brain. And a lot of that like didn't happen. It was like, put your foot down, put your foot down, and then finally it was like, oh, that foot. Like, and then when
why
it
do you think
clicked.
that happens? Why do you think that happens? And what is that learning process we're going through when that happens?
And I think we're just used to moving in different ways. Wing Chun is like totally moving in a way that's so unfamiliar, and kind of like it's a little weird, and it's not the way that especially Americans move and carry our bodies. So it's like it's just, it can be very confusing at first. It's like learning a new language. So suddenly it's hard to grasp. And then it just sinks in, but it's just practice. I mean, that's the meaning of Kung Fu. You have to, practice all the time. So it just taught me like Patience. You patience because it can be frustrating.
Did you, aside from yoga, did you ever do any other sports before martial arts?
Yeah, I played basketball growing up, and I wasn't great. I was just, I'm 5'10", and like I always was kind of like tall and like lengthy, and so they just threw me on teams. Like I remember the coach when I went to school at Forest Hills High School in Queens, and like the coach came running down the hallway, and he's like, "Do you play basketball? Do you run track? Do you whatever?" And I think I played every sport. I was okay, but not like I couldn't be a point guard. I didn't have my coordination was not the best. I was a good forward and center. I could shoot, but like that was hard for me. So the coordination now, I feel like I'm really working on.
Oh yeah, your entire body is tied into one movement for delivering energy. So
Yeah.
coordination is the definition of it. When you first started, because your lineage is very big on a heavy rear foot weight distribution. You guys are 70-30, if not 90-10. For those who don't know what I mean, it's you're putting a majority of your weight on what we would call the back leg. Most other systems are 50-50, whereas I came from wrestling, which was 90-10. You put all your weight on your front leg. When you did that, and you're like, oh my God, was that an eye-opening experience, or was coming from Tai Chi with that
Tai
fluidity of
Chi.
movement?
So you're always emptying one leg, and you're doing a little bit of that already. So I had some background. It wasn't as confusing to me or challenging as maybe for someone else who's never moved that way. But had I not had a Tai Chi background, I think it would be a lot harder.
God, there's so much I could freaking ask you about this. The difference, there is a big difference in our art between the movie Wing Chun and the practical application to it. Where, I hate quoting him, but it's like Bruce Lee had said, one of my favorite quotes from him, and I'm paraphrasing, is when he first started Wing Chun, a punch was just a punch. Then after training, he realized it was ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, spine, elbow, wrist. Then after a while, punch was just a punch again. When it comes down to the biggest argument of people, well, you don't see any Wing Chun in MMA. And the answer is always, well, if you see Wing Chun, it's not Wing Chun. It's supposed to be sloppy and accurate. Do you embrace more of like, yeah, what I saw with Donnie Yen or the prodigal son, that's what I want, and that's the beauty and the movement and this, that,
I
and
mean,
the other.
hell yeah, of course I like to move like that. I mean, I think everybody would, I'd be like flying all over the place and just, moving like that. But it's
Well, do you
you know,
embrace the reality? Do you embrace the reality of the fight of Wing Chun? Because when people want to train, I ask them. That's the first question I ask. Do you want to look like Donnie Yen? Because I could teach you movie choreography, or do you want to know that your center line punch when you get in a real fight is not going to project from your chest? It's going to come out of nowhere, and guess what? It might be a hook punch at the same time. So have
yeah, it's
you?
definitely not as beautiful to watch. Uh, and poetic. Like as you see these movies are like, it's like, wow, it's like so theatrical. Yeah, I kind of went in with that expectation though, that it was not going to be like the movies. I kind of course wish it was, and you can be like a badass like Michelle Yeoh like type of thing, but it's but still it's efficient and effective, and I still think it's an amazing art. So yeah, it's okay not to do that. But but the Tai Chi has some of those aspects. Some of the movements, man, they're so beautiful. Like you like it's just it's like it's a really beautiful art to watch, and you start to do all these different moves. You're playing with fans, and you're doing like I mean, it's really cool, and it is cinematic, honestly.
Oh, the fluidity of Tai Chi is gorgeous. It's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah.
You've talked about it several times. I want to ask you, how would you advocate for younger people to, hey, listen, Tai Chi is not for older. You should get involved with this. If you're advocating for it, because that's what you're bringing with Soul Hacker, how do you captivate a younger audience who is, I got to see MMA and somebody's blasted ear or nose all over the face. I don't have time for this old man Tai Chi stuff. How do you impress upon selling the beauty and the functionality of Tai Chi?
Well, just like there's so many martial arts movies, and I think that's what gets people excited about it. And when they look at the forums, you talk about the prodigal son or something, that type of thing. I think there should be more with Tai Chi, with young people moving and making it appealing, and maybe maybe some way in the world of social media, how things go viral, they can watch these young people do these amazing moves with strength and flow, and someone can say that's really cool, and that's like been happening to a degree. I mean, I'm not a master of Tai Chi. I've been practicing for a while, but there's people who have been doing this forever. But what I will say is even the small things that I've shown to people, and they're like, the feedback I've gotten is that's really cool. Like I had no idea that, Tai Chi looks like that, or it's, and they're very interested. So I think they just need to be exposed to what it is. And maybe that needs to come through more videos or just spreading a view of what it looks like so people understand it's just not for that. And because I lived in Chinatown at one point, and I remember like seeing these women who were in their like 70s and 80s practicing every morning, and that was my view. So it needs to be represented in a different way.
I have it here again for everyone. It's SOULRHAKKER, soulhacker.com. Make sure you visit this website and check it out. I have one last question that I'm hoping. I don't care if it's brother, husband, uncle, somebody. Please tell me there's been a story that somebody's, oh, you practice your cute little self-defense martial art. And you know how it normally goes. Some girl takes a self-defense class and tries to do a move and she's embarrassed. Please tell me you've had an experience where somebody is like, you have gone my wrist, grab my wrist, and then they grab your wrist and you fucked them up by hitting them 12 times in the throat or something. They've gone, okay, that's damn cool. Have you had that experience yet where you've impressed somebody or not yet?
God, I want to tell you that I have, because I just want to be in that position for someone who like starts with me, but no, I haven't, but I kind of want to go there. So, not yet.
Yes, please. Somebody, if you are in Danielle's family, please just grab a wrist. And then it's awesome. It's all, there's never been an instance, because the automatic response from our hands with that economy of motion, centerline theory, it overwhelms the shit out of people every single time. And like, what was that? That's Wing Chun. It's like, what the hell? Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right.
I tell people, I'm like, instead of these women, instead of playing pickleball, and you want to get your coordination that way, like do something like that. Like, yeah.
I mean, I appreciate women's self-defense classes. I appreciate Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I appreciate kickboxing, all this. There is nothing, when you really get into the study of Wing Chun, there's nothing like it. No other art on the planet, in my humble opinion, has such a depth of variety from a complete system like Wing Chun does. It's insane. Close us out. Tell us again about Soul Hacker. Tell us about what you offer for people, what your passion is to work with people, how they can contact you, give all the good things about you, and how they can wind up getting a hold of you.
So Soul Hacker is it's an online community where members, they can learn about Tai Chi, Qigong, and also forms of internal martial arts. But I also want to bring Wing Chun into Soul Hacker, because I think that's the next level where I want to introduce people to that. But it's for people who want to feel better. They want to regulate their nervous system. They want to help with their metabolic health. That means like their glucose, their cholesterol, their weight, really help their brain health, feel grounded, help their stress and anxiety. Like it's really for people who are searching for an answer, who are maybe just not feeling like they should, and they just need something to just calm down, feel good, and really regain their health. This is what I'm offering now. And they could watch instructional videos to learn, and also videos where we're going to be having conversations not only about martial arts, but nutrition and other wellness things that can really help them just improve the quality of their lives.
I think it's such a social day and age. This is a fantastic thing you're offering. SOULHAKKER. Soulhacker.com. Check it out. Danielle, I really appreciate you joining today. We're going to have you back on. I want to hear more about your Wing Chun journey. I want to get more into some, when you tap into that violent side of you.
Oh my God. You're the first to know.
Yeah. Dude, so he did this and I fucked this guy up and he's like, that's what I want to hear. You've already got the internal down. I mean, that's what I liked about this is everybody, they do Wing Chun for 6 months. They get nothing out of it. And then they go do an MMA class like, oh my God, that was great. Or I should have done BJJ quicker. Yeah, because you're removing all Wing Chun. You have to have that foundation, and you can't rush it. It has to be done in the boring, static, internal, self-reflective movements that you're not going to understand for a couple years. You go to something else and it's, yeah, of course you get punched in the face less and punch somebody more. And you're like, this is awesome. I can't tell. It's so worth sticking through it for like you're at year 2, year 5, year 10, and you're like, oh my God. And it's the people who've been doing it that long. You touch hands with them and you're like, this is insane.
Yep.
This is insane. So I'm very, very, very eager to see where your journey lives out there and where it goes to. Thanks for joining. Appreciate your time today.
Awesome.
Guys, this is Them's Fighting Words podcast. We'll have more episodes out there. I know there's a lot of you who want to have me interview certain people. Please put it in the comment section. You can email your suggestions at izzowingchun@gmail.com. Whatever you train, I respect it. Is what it is. I'm partial. Wing Chun's the best. Bruce Lee was a fool for leaving and doing whatever he did. You guys all know how I feel about that. Have an awesome damn day. Go out there, train your martial arts hard, and I'll see you on the next video.